Welcome to Somerset Showcase. Today we're going to talk about a topic that has to do with the environment, it has to do with people's pocketbooks, it has to do with the town's finances, and that is recycling. We're here today to talk to Interim Town Administrator Michael Gallagher and Highway Superintendent Christopher Simon. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And so, it sounds like maybe we need to do a little refresher course on recycling for today, and maybe go over some of the things that people should and shouldn't be putting into their recycling bins.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. I know most people don't know this, that we go through these periodic audits of what's actually going into our recycling and into our trash even, but primarily the recycling. We have these audits that Waste Management will do with the loads that they pick up in town, and we get reports on what's been put in there that actually contaminates the load. And unfortunately what happens is if they go to the recycling plant and go to dump what's there, if there's contamination in there, the recycling repository will reject the entire load. And it becomes then a burden on the taxpayers, because now we're paying a penalty on all of that. There's a fine that's associated with that we actually pay now per pound for that contaminated load, because now it has to be taken out of the recycle plant and taken now down to the actual trash disposal. And so if people are putting things in the wrong places, that becomes problematic. And I think the other thing we need to get out there is, just because it's plastic or just because it's metal doesn't necessarily mean it's recyclable. So there's certain things that are and certain things that aren't. Like, I'll give you for instance, aerosol cans are not recyclable. Those are trash. Those need to go into your trash container. The black plastic food containers that you may get when you do takeout, those are not recyclable. Those are trash. They will not accept those. They'll actually reject them. And then you have the really interesting things that get into our loads sometimes. Some of the reports we get, I'll just read you a couple because I think they're kind of interesting. But we had one load, we actually had dirt, belts. We had people put wood into their recycling container. None of those things are recyclable. So styrofoam is another big one. Styrofoam seems to be prevalent. Styrofoam is not a recyclable product, so styrofoam has to go into your trash container.
That's one people should know.
They should, but people forget, and they just think, well, okay, I'll put it in there because they think it belongs there. Plastic bags. The plastic bags that you get from supermarkets are not recyclable. Those need to be disposed of in your trash and put in, properly disposed of, or reused in, for a bag for trash, not a bag for recyclable. So oftentimes you'll see people that will take a plastic bag and they'll put bottles and cans in that bag, and then put the whole bag in their recycle bin. And you need to empty the bag into the recycle bin and then dispose of the plastic bag. So those are the kind of things that we need to be cognizant of. I mean, we had one load when we had sections of a carpet. Somebody cut up a carpet and thrown those into their recycle bin. And that whole load got rejected, and we wound up paying a fine. The other thing that we're seeing is an uptick in the amount of materials that are going in there that are not recyclable. So we went from like a 7.9% at one point. This last time around, 26% of our recycling was rejected because it was contaminated. That's big. That's a big dollar amount back to the taxpayers. The town is all of you. The town is the taxpayers. You're it. So when we talk about the town, I tend to talk about the taxpayer, because at the end of the day, you're paying for it one way or the other. So you either buy the bag and dispose of it properly, or you wind up paying for it at some point because it's going to increase your taxes, it's going to increase the cost of the town, i.e. being the taxpayer at some point.
Why do you think we're having this big increase in people putting stuff that aren't recyclables into their bins. They're just not educated enough, or
I think some people don't know. I think some of it's
increasing gas prices, or why?
I think some people don't know, don't realize what can go in there. Another one too is pizza boxes. People think because it's cardboard.
Thank you.
But anything with food, grease like that is not recyclable. But the other issue too is I think people are trying to, circumvent buying the trash bags. They're using the bin as, a secondary trash bag, really. Some of the loads that I've seen are very interesting on what's in there. I mean, you get a little bit of everything,
Yeah, we've had things like, again, just because it's metal doesn't mean it's recyclable. So we had a compressor,
Yep.
an old compressor tank. Someone threw that into their recycle bin. It's not recyclable, that's metal, and that should be recycled in a different method.
There's been a lot of stuff, garden hose, you see garden hose in there, you've seen electrical cords, we've seen, chicken carcasses from a rotisserie chicken, like that's not supposed to go in the bin. And what they really want, and I know a lot of people don't do it, is it's not just use, your peanut butter jar and throw it in there. You're actually supposed to wash everything out and clean it. Same thing with your cans, you're supposed to wash them out, rinse them, and throw them in the bin. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the information is up online, but some people, they just don't know. They just don't know.
Yeah, any kind of food material in the recycling will cause the load to be rejected. And it doesn't have to be a ton, it just has to be one item. So if you have somebody that, to Chris's point, throws a peanut butter jar in there and didn't wash it out, rinse it out, put it in there, that whole load's coming back, and we're paying for that load in a different manner.
It was easy going, I think, when the whole program started. It was, recycling was a big thing, but a lot of our stuff gets shipped overseas, and they're just not accepting a lot of stuff anymore. Once upon a time, they would take a lot more stuff without kicking it back, but certain countries that are taking it don't want it anymore, so now they're flagging you for every little thing they can, because it costs more to get rid of the recycling now than it does. It's not as, sought over or wanted like it used to be. They used to let a lot of things fly because, they would get rid of it to other places that wanted it. But a lot of places just don't want it anymore. I mean, the whole thing's kind of changed a little bit. But
When I was doing my run this morning, I saw a lot of nips bottles on the side of the road, which is a whole
yeah, we
issue
picked up
in
quite a few of
itself.
those.
What do you do with those? What should people be?
Those are trash.
Yeah, those are trash.
Yeah, nip bottles are not recyclable either.
I almost wish the state would put a deposit on those, because you find so many nip bottles in town, and it's amusing, but it's not. Certain areas it's gonna be the person that's, on their way home, because you'll find the same nip bottle behind the same rock, people just toss them out their window. They're easy to get rid of,
There must be a lot of people drinking them on Whetstone Hill Road, because this is where I was running this morning.
Yep. There in one spot is the backside of the reservoir, Elm North Street. I don't know who it is, but somebody likes the Jim Beam, and they throw the same bottle in the same place every day. You can go there every week and pick up, 30, 40 nip bottles. It must just be their habit, a routine. Everybody's got a routine, so it's interesting.
How much is these rejected loads costing the town? How?
What are they charging us now? It used to be $250 a load.
I think they increased it. I think it's around 300 now.
So where does that money come from? Is it? I know there's, and I think some people don't realize that the bags don't pay for the whole trash program. We
It just offsets the
appropriate
cost.
a lot of money at town meeting to also pay for it. Is that how you pay for the rejected loads?
Yeah.
It comes out of that.
Yeah, there's the total cost to remove trash, recycling, yard waste, whatever, from the town is about $1.8, $1.9 million. And we get about half of that from the bag sales. The rest of that is coming out of taxation, so people are paying for that out of their real estate taxes. So it's kind of a combination, it's a split. So any additional costs are going to increase our needs for the following fiscal year, which means that we're going to have to increase the budget line for that, which means we've got to take money away from somewhere else where we need to raise and appropriate the additional funds in taxation.
And at the end of the day, you know, where does it come from? It comes from the people of Somerset. You're paying for it one way or another. Whether you go to the store, nobody likes to buy bags, I understand, but if you're not buying bags to offset the cost, well, then your taxes are gonna go up. So you're paying for it either way. You can either pay for it up front, or you can pay for it down the road, but it's coming from us.
I mean, when you used to go to the dump in the olden days, you had to buy a sticker, right?
Yep.
So you have to pay for it, so.
Yeah.
Where does our recycling go? Where do?
From here it goes to Avon, and then a lot of it goes overseas. They'll send it overseas after it goes through the plant where they sort everything, you know.
Yeah, there's a large facility in Avon that accepts tons of recycling from all over the place, and goes through a whole process there. There's a whole conveyor process stuff. It's kind of a fascinating process to watch. Maybe one day we do another one of these and we do it on site, on location, and actually show people how the process works, and it may help them understand better why we do some of the things we do. But there's a whole processing plant that does all that, and then they package it all up and they separate the glass from. So we do what's called single stream recycling. So we put our plastic, our metal, and our paper all in one bin. But when it gets there, it actually has to be sorted. So it gets sorted through a process, and then the paper goes in one direction, the plastic goes someplace else, and the metal goes to a different place. So that's what they're doing at that Avon plant. And like I said, they accept stuff from all over the place. So when you get a load that comes in that all of a sudden has this problem, the other thing that happens is too with plastic bags. When you put a plastic bag in your recycle bin, those get caught up in the gears of the processing plant that's doing all of the separating, and it just shuts the whole plant down, which then creates a burden on the folks that are running that, which then increase their cost of operation, which then they pass on to waste management, who's delivering the products for us, who then passes on to us, and at the end of the day, it's back to the taxpayer, because it all flows in one direction.
And there's some towns that are banning plastic bags, right?
There are.
They don't want them being used in the stores. So.
There are. I have mixed emotions about that one. I mean, I remember when we went to plastic bags because we wanted to save the trees and stop doing paper. Now we want to ban plastic and go back to paper or the cloth bags that you can buy and use. And I do get the whole issue of, you know, it takes a long time for them to deteriorate. It takes a long, you know, if they're all over the place in the town, it looks messy, it's bad for the environment. I don't know about anybody else, but I reuse my plastic bags all the time.
Yeah,
I've got 2 sheds, a garage, a car, and there's one everywhere, so that I have a place to put my trash, and then I wrap them up and throw them in my trash barrel. So they're not really single use. I mean, we've got other bags that are truly single use. They're all plastic. When you go to the deli and you get deli meats, that's a one-time use. You're not going to reuse that for anything else. You're going to just, once it's empty, it's going into the trash. So it's a large problem in the country. Don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing it at all, but I don't know ultimately if that's a good place to go. I'm not sold, but that's me. That's my personal opinion. As a town administrator, sure, I'll support whatever people want to do. That makes sense. It's whatever the community wants to do.
Now, do you have your own systems at home that you use for separating your recyclables? Can you give some suggestions to people on how to do that?
So I have, I talk about there's 3 people in my household, and I have 2 bins. I have one that we put all of our paper products in. Actually, I have multiple bins around the house, because there's one for paper that needs to be shredded, and that's the other thing, shredded paper is not recyclable. If you shred paper, it has to go in your trash, because otherwise it's messy, it gets all over the place through the process. But so I have one for paper products, and I have another one for everything else, for the plastic and the glass and the metal. And I do my own audit when I'm dumping stuff in, and I constantly have to sit down with my family members and say, no, this is recyclable, this isn't. This one I found in the trash, and it should have been in recycle, that one's in recycle, one in the trash. So I constantly do a at-home education with my own family. And I started with my kids when they were younger. We actually had multiple bins, and we had to separate everything into the glass, plastic, metal, paper. So we had like 4 bins in the house at one point. But that's how I do it, and then I'm just very cautious. The other thing is the company that my town used when we bought our barrels for recycling actually had the information embedded in the top of the bin. So when you're going to put the stuff in the larger bin, it's all right there, and it explains to you what should be and shouldn't be. It's unfortunate we didn't do that here in Somerset, but we also have a card that's online that explains all of that, and actually goes through and explains something. I've got a copy here, but it looks something similar to this, and actually went out to all the residents at one point in time. I've been having discussions with the folks in my office about maybe sending this out one more time. And if we do, what I recommend is people tape this to the top of their bin, and then it's right there for them all the time in case they have a question about something, should I or shouldn't I, it's right there.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll give you an example. Egg cartons are another one. Egg cartons are not recyclable. Don't put the egg cartons in the recycle bin, those are trash. So, I'm sorry, I started.
So people can, we have all this information online on the town's
Yeah.
website. They can go there and look at this so that they...
Yeah, the information is there. I'm not sure where it is, if it's under highway or not.
The majority of it is on the town's website, on the highway department.
So, and I will admit, our website is not the most user-friendly, which is why I went to town meeting and asked for additional funding this year to redo the website. So that's a project that we're going to get started pretty soon, and we're going to actually revamp the website to make it a lot more user-friendly so people can find this information a lot more quickly online. But we'll also make the information available in the various town offices. I had a conversation today with the folks in my office. We were talking about, so I wanted to make this kind of a larger discussion. We're talking about yard waste. I said, well, where's the schedule? We've got them out on the counter, and they're in the clerk's office. I said, well, we need to make sure that they're in the library. We need to put some at the highway department, the police department, places where people go, Council on Aging, make sure that there's information there. I think our job is to educate as best we can and get the information out to the public, how they handle that and what they do with it. It's up to them, but it's your town, and you need to do what you need to do. But we'll put the information out there and make it as available as we can.
And there's going to be some changes in some of the recycling in the short-term future?
Well, there's one big change that I announced the other night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. The company that's been doing, picking up the textiles and such, I'm trying to remember the name of the company now.
The one with the pink bags?
Yeah.
The one with the pink bags. That company has gone out of business. They found that the cost of operating, with the cost of labor, the cost of materials, the cost of transportation, it just was not cost effective for them to run that business anymore. So they have folded, and we will no longer be doing that. So we'll no longer be having that available to the folks in town. So unfortunately, that's something we won't be doing anymore. I would highly recommend that you have, clothing, et cetera, that you want to donate, that you find the proper charity to donate that to.
And there's a lot of places in town. I know the Lions Club does it every year. The PTOs have clothes drives, and they get paid money that helps their organizations for donating that stuff, so there's plenty of places that can pick that up.
You know, people just, you know, need to be cognizant. Please don't throw them in your recycle bin. We've had sneakers in the recycle bin that doesn't work either.
And then there's the Salvation Army, which is a short ride away in Swansea as well.
Yeah.
It's-
You know, the Salvation Army is always willing to take, you know, all kinds of materials, all kinds of things.
There's also quite a few boxes around town to put stuff in. I know, I think Country Store has some, and I believe the gentleman down the center, Dunkin' Donuts has them to accept those kinds of goods. So you can bring them there, just not your recycling bin.
And, you know, I think the other thing is yard waste. I think people get confused over the calendar for yard waste. The calendar is also on our website, and we also make that available in hard copy at the various town offices, so we'll make sure that that's out there as well, so that people know when the yard waste is being picked up. That's another, you know, important service that is offered, again, through your taxes, through, you know, what we budget for trash removal. That's part of that whole process as well.
It's amazing. I think since I've worked in news, probably the two biggest complaints I've seen in all the towns I've worked in have either had to do with trash or cable.
Yeah.
Because those are the things that affect almost everybody in town. Everybody has those services.
And yard waste, I think we're going to have a discussion pretty soon with the Board of Selectmen to maybe limit how many bags we're putting out. You drive by some houses and there's 15, 20 bags outside a yard waste. It slows up the process of picking it up. There's, you know, especially when we're doing weekly, there's really not a reason to have that many bags out in front of your house. I don't really know where you're even getting it from. But
I see that when I'm running sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, the issue with the yard waste is there's only a single truck that's doing the yard waste pickup in town. And that truck gets full, and it has to unload. Well, it dumps the
In Dartmouth.
materials in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time for that truck to get out to Dartmouth, empty what's in it, and then come back and finish the route. So a lot of times we'll have situations where the route may not get finished in a day, and people are then calling town hall and they say, why did my yard waste get picked up? Well, you know, unfortunately, we had to make more trips to Dartmouth than we should have because of so much material being out there. So Chris and I have been talking about how do we, you know, go about doing that. Is there a limit of some sorts? Do we go to a bi-weekly pickup? Those are the types of things that we're talking about, and just, you know, have a bi-weekly pickup for a longer period of time. We're also working with Waste Management to see what's the most cost-effective approach to take for the taxpayer, because that's what it's all about. We want to make sure that we do the right thing for the residents of the town. So that's something else we've been looking at and discussing.
And was another change related to mattresses that's going to be coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a big one. I'm going to kick
Yeah,
it off
as of November, we're no longer going to accept, or the state is no longer allowing us to accept mattresses at the transfer station. We are working, I believe we're trying to get a grant right now to become one location in the area, maybe working something out with Swansea or something to where we will start accepting them again, but it'll be a completely different process in taking them. They're going to start to recycle mattresses instead of, a lot of them will end up at CMAS, and they just go in the incinerators. So they're working at trying to recycle them. So moving forward, that's the plan, but as of right now, I know that we won't accept them after November at the transfer station until further notice.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can, obviously, to try to get something up and running as quickly as possible. We've got at least enough notice where we can begin to put some plans in place to deal with that. But again, we're at the mercy of the state. So we're at the mercy of the state, we're at the mercy of the DEP, the EPA. We have to comply with all those things, and it just ties our hands sometimes. And it's unfortunate, but it is. The state has decided this is the best route to take, so now we have to comply.
But what are some of the other things that people can bring to the transfer station?
Well, I know Also, as of November, we're not gonna accept any more solid greens, so no more household trash. They don't want stuff that could be put out curbside in the dumpsters. But, you know, the town's very fortunate because we have a pretty good transfer station. We accept just about everything, everything from building materials. The only thing we do require is if you bring in truckloads of building materials, you should have a building permit accompanied with that load. We take refrigerators, you know, anything with Freon in it, air conditioners. We take just about everything. We take pretty much, we take tires, you know. Yeah, we take pretty much everything.
And
Bulk stuff.
That list is online as well, so.
Yep, that list is online, and they can stop by the highway department and pick up a pamphlet. We have pamphlet with the prices and what we accept. And, it's run the first and third Saturday of the month, from 8 to noon. They just come in, you go off the list, and they'll send you where to go. We are working on revamping the transfer station, whether it's going to be this year or maybe for next year. We're going to try to streamline a little bit more, and the town's actually providing, you know, a courtesy, because it ends up costing us more to get rid of the stuff than we are actually taking in. That's why a couple of years ago we raised the prices on some stuff. For instance, mattresses, we were charging $10 to get rid of mattresses. That's going up to $20, and the reason it went up to $20 is it cost us $30 to get rid of it. So we're still losing out, but it's better than it was before. Tires, I believe, went from $3 to $5, you know, cost to get rid of tires. So there's certain adjustments we've made, but we're looking at, you know, the possibility of going by weight, you know, so you're paying for actually what you have. Right now it's set up to where, we'll say a truckload is $30, but if you've got a coffee table in the back of your truck, you're getting charged $30, whereas the guy that's truck's full is getting charged $30 because it's the $30 load is a truckload. So maybe going by weight will offset the cost a little bit on, you know, what we're bringing in and paying for. So those are all things that we're hoping to do.
Is there going to be a household hazardous waste collection day this year?
Not this year, there isn't.
Not this year.
We did it last year. It really wasn't a big turnout, even though we had gotten quite a few calls for it. So I figured we'll skip this year and we'll have one next year. There's, you know, it costs, I think last year's hazardous waste day, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe it was around $12,000 it cost us to host it, and the turnout, there was not many people there at all.
Yeah, maybe because I think you did a few years in a row.
Yeah, we had done one 2 years ago, which again was a pretty decent turnout. So I don't know, last year just wasn't that good.
And we want to talk about bags. And
Yeah, let's segue into bags. So I know that there's been a lot of chatter online about the availability of the trash bags. It's not a Somerset only problem. It's a global issue. It's a manufacturing issue. So our supplier is doing the best they can to get us what we can, you know, what they can for bags. They promised we would have them by now. That was a month ago. I think we had a conversation with them, and they saw this problem coming, but it's a supply chain issue, and it's a global supply chain issue with, of all things, trash bags. Don't know what the driver is of that. You know, I know that plastic is a petroleum-based product, so it could have something to do with the cost of petroleum. I have no idea. We haven't really chased it down to that level, but we're doing the best we can to try to get the bags into people's hands. Chris and I have been having some discussions about, you know, the Board of Selectmen meet next Wednesday. I think I need to have a conversation with them about how do we get through the next couple of weeks to at least get to the point where, you know, we've got those available. You know, we've been talking about, you know, do we have an amnesty kind of program for the next couple of weeks of this fiscal year where people can put out whatever kind of bag. We would have to coordinate all of that with waste management so that we don't want people to have to like pile up their trash or put their trash in their recycle bin because they have no other means to dispose of it. We don't want to do that to the taxpayer. So my recommendation to the board is going to be, let's have an amnesty, let people put out whatever bags they have, put your trash in it, get them on the curb. At least we'll get the stuff picked up over the
Kind of like
next.
they do around holiday time.
Yeah,
The only-
get through all of that, and then get the bags from the manufacturer.
The only thing with that is,
Don't clean out your house.
it's not a house clean out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not, let's
Yeah,
get rid of
you-
everything in the trash. I mean, you're still paying for it. I mean, you're paying for it in the end, but it's not, let's clean out the shed and the garage and the attic and,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like you're not getting it for nothing, is what I'm saying. You know, you just try to be conscientious when you're putting it out. I mean,
Yeah, I think
that's
that's
not a free-for-all.
I think that's a great point, that you're nothing's for nothing. At some point in time, you're gonna pay for it, because, we're gonna get a bill from Waste Management for the cost of disposing of all of that, and that bill gets passed right back to you as the taxpayer. So just be cognizant of all of that. At some point in time, you're going to pay that bill. Pay me now, pay me later, it's going to happen. So just be aware of that. I think a lot of people don't understand the process and how all that works, and the fact that we are paying by the ton to dispose of this stuff, and it gets expensive. It gets very expensive very quickly.
We're in pretty good shape right now with small bags. There's still a good amount of small bags. The large bags, the last of our large was just delivered to Stop and Shop a few days ago. So if you're looking for large bags and you can't find them at your local store, I know Stop and Shop did get the last, I think, 9 or 10 cases of large bags, so they should have them in stock.
Everybody's gonna be rushing over there now.
Yeah, no, I know. It's unfortunate because we were supposed to have them by now, and then the last word I heard was we're about 2 weeks out from getting them. Whether next week that becomes 2 weeks out again, it's not anything our supplier is doing, it's the manufacturer of them just,
Well, it's the world today.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a lot of things. I couldn't believe how long it took me to get a couch from this place I ordered it from. They
Oh, yeah.
kept delaying it because of production. So, okay, well, this has been very informative, I think, for the recycling and the trash. And,
One last thing I want to say about the recycling bins. We get a lot of calls, hey, I put this out, they didn't take it, why didn't they take it? Recyclables have to go in your recycling bin, but they have to be in your bin. Even if you do it neatly, it's not like the old company. If you make a pile of cardboard and you put it nice and neat and tie it up and put it on top of your bin, they're not going to take it. It has to be in the bin. It's, I've gone back and forth with Waste Management on it. It's just their policy. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it has to be in the bin or they're not going to take it. So if you wonder why they took your bin but left your nice pile of cardboard on the side of it, they're not allowed to get out of the truck. They have to stay in the truck. I know we had an issue, quite a few issues on Main Street with, hey, they're not picking up my recycling. I've talked to the route manager. It's either being put too close to a telephone pole, it's being put behind cars. They're not going to get out and move your bin. You have to make it accessible to them to be able to pull up and grab it. So those are just some things. If your recycling's not picked up, that's why. They got the arm when the truck comes down. It's got to be far enough away from vehicles so they don't damage it. And it's got to be far enough away from telephone poles so they can grab it and get around it. So we just got to make sure it's out in the open.
yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, 2 feet is usually a good, if you're putting stuff up, make sure there's 2 feet of
Yeah.
space around the bin so they can grab it with the truck. The arm.
Yeah. So that's it.
All right, we've been talking about recycling and trash in Somerset. Thank you for tuning in to Somerset Showcase. We will see you next time.